Welcome back to Made Up of Wires. We're decompiling Castlevania Symphony of the Night, as always. I was thinking before the stream, what if we finished and I didn't have Castlevania Symphony of the Night to decompile anymore? If I was decompiling Beetle Adventure Racing, would you still show up? Would you watch the stream? Would it be a different audience? Would there be any audience? But we still have a lot of Castlevania to decompile, so let's keep doing that. If you're not familiar with the Castlevania Symphony of the Night decompilation project, you can go to soten.z.dev. Soten.z.dev is run by Zynamo, who started the project, has built a ton of the tooling, and maintains all of the infrastructure, GitHub, the progress website, set up basically everything. And I just want to give a shout out to him. I don't think we always give him the appreciation and attention that he deserves. So I just want to say, Zynamo, we really appreciate everything that you're doing, and you've built an awesome community. And you really have done a lot of behind the scenes stuff that enables so many more people. So for every minute of your work, you're enabling hours of other people's work, which is truly incredible. So go to soten.z.dev. You can find a link to Discord. You can find a link to the source code as well. Not that there's not other people that aren't working behind the scenes to make this project a reality as well. Today's just Zynamo's day. I was thinking about Sozu. Sozu does a lot of stuff as well. All right, so there's so many more. If I didn't say your name, that doesn't mean I don't appreciate the work that you've done. So let's look at what we've been working on. I mentioned we looked at Long Library. That is currently in flight. I still haven't submitted a PR for BO4, which is Doppelgänger, and I really should, so we get progress for that as well. I do wonder if progress has been fixed on the website, but I'm not, or on GitHub. I'm not going to look at that right now. So let's continue on. I mentioned that we're looking at Doppelgänger, primarily a bunch of this stuff in the beginning. So when the Doppelgänger overlay loads, we have these doors that just appeared over here. We have the big disc in the middle, the light effects in the middle, and all of those, all the code for those is approximately in the same place. So we're going to keep looking at that today and see what else we can find. I'll probably add a couple breakpoints and see if there's something that we can figure out from those. If we can identify any of the other entities. I'm guessing that these blocks are pretty straightforward, so it'd be nice to identify those, and anything else really. So let me reload my save state. I'm going to turn on a debugger. Actually, I'm going to hide the debugger and show you where I'm getting the offsets. So in, I kind of guessed, and that's the way that I like to work. Different people may work differently. Some people might have wanted to continue to call this file like unknown 4BF0. That's not really my style. I would rather have a approximation and then get closer and closer with that approximation. So I called this doors. And it might not all be doors. There might be other things in here. But doors was my first guess. It might be wildly off, but we'll get closer. So I'm going to go through, and the function names are automatically assigned by Splat, more appropriately by SPIM, I believe. And by default, those are just the offset as to where they are loaded in memory. And so, fortunately, those become our addresses that we can put in to the debugger. So these remaining functions, bf0, actually I might do this 55dc as well, because we didn't, we just decompiled that without looking at it. With the exception of this 774, I'll put these others in, and we can see what those might be. I had a poorly named branch, which my autocomplete checked out when I was trying to reset things, and I annihilated a bunch of comments and other things like that that I weren't super important, but I don't have those anymore. So I'm just going to put all of these addresses here, and we're breaking on when those get executed. I did this before, but like I said, I don't have that work anymore. I could go back and watch my streams and pull that back out, but it's probably quicker just to do this. So I have all these breakpoints here. I'm going to start, and these breakpoints are at specific addresses, but every overlay is using the same address space. So it's possible that we could hit any of these addresses while we're just in the outer wall before this gets loaded in. Some of the earlier streams, I think Roaming or maybe Mr. MIDI pointed out that that was one of the things that was happening. I went in to fight Doppelgänger and hit a breakpoint, but really it was a breakpoint for outer wall that just coincidentally was using the same location in memory. So these, if they hit before this overlay loads, it's just a coincidence. I doubt it's going to happen though. So we'll go in and see what happens. So the overlay takes a little while to load, but we have hit a breakpoint already, and that's this for BF0. What I want to see is how many of these are going to continue being hit as we get in that initial room load sequence. So we have the blocks coming down to prevent you from exiting the room. And then in the middle, we eventually have the spinning disc. So let's see which of those, if any, are going to be loaded here. All right, so I'm going to unpause, and immediately we hit 5040 and hit that again. Just keep hitting that. Oh, BF0 is hit again. 5FC is hit, which is the last one. And I'm just making a comment in the background. And figuring out what the timing of all these are then allows us to narrow down which entities these might be. 5FC again, which is that last one. A bunch there. And I went too quick, but I think that was 4BF0 and 5040. FB, oh, it was FB0. Is that a different function? It is. I'm not diagnosed, but I always consider myself numerically dyslexic. So basically everything except 55DC has been hit so far. So let's disable all those, since we know that those are part of this opening sequence. Okay, so we haven't hit 55DC yet. I'll walk in. So the vault door is open. And we never hit 5.5 DC and all that. Okay, so I'm going to, I'm just going to pause. I don't need any of those other ones. It's possible that 5.5 DC is just dead code, but we'll see. So I'm going to close all those windows, and let's look at what is left here. 4168. This is a this RO data we don't have to worry about. That will come along with this 5FB0 most likely. So I'm not worried about that. I'm just going to kind of go up from the bottom regarding the size. So I'm going to look at this 65FC. Was that? Yes, that was one that was hit at the beginning. So let's do that one. Oops. Don't need to paste it all in there. So we do have a jump table here. Oh, that RO data actually might not be a jump table. Let's look at what it is. It's just 3 words, and we don't know what those are yet. They're for a different function though, and not this one. Well, I shouldn't say that. We don't know that they're for this one yet. So just going through the assembly quickly. There is some checks for the player X position, looking at buttons that have been pressed, creating entities, scrolling. Nothing too crazy. Let's look and see if anything has been done with that yet. Going over to decomp.me and getting the pinwheel of death. Why don't you want to load? There we go. So I'll start a new scratch. Castlevania Symphony of the Night as my preset. And I need to copy this again. There we go. Like usual, this is has been identified as an entity update function, and so the signature for that is always going to be void with a single entity pointer argument. I think that's all I need. Actually, there's one more thing I'll do, is just make sure my primitive is the PlayStation primitive and not the PSP primitive, and that is correct as well. And let's see what we have. So a little state machine, doesn't look too complicated yet. We have something similar, and it's kind of odd, I think, how sometimes these clusters, so within a stage, and it must be like, or maybe how different developers work, and their individual style of programming causes some of these things. We have another function with one of these odd save register S3s. The way that I am currently interpreting that is we have an uninitialized variable, and we're going to have to figure out what that uninitialized variable is. And that value is an S3. So this is possibly a bug. And so we'll see what happens there. Somewhat interesting double jump. We have a block at the end here. We're jumping up to block 34. block 34 jumps to block 35, and what does block 35 do? Breaks. So why are we generating all those instructions? Just to exit the function? We will see, I guess. So let's get this compiling and see what happens. I'm going to create a sign16 variable. I'll call it uninitialized, and I'll use that in place of this saved reg s3, and comment that out to remind myself that this is an uninitialized register. We can get some type information here, but I want to see what some of the other things we have are. So we have a index here. This looks like 32-bit values. Actually, sorry, pairs of 16-bit values. So we'll call that a 0.16 array. This 672 is actually the second offset for that array. So I'll give it a 0.16 type just to make the decompiler happy. But I don't think that's necessary. I'm going to grab the signature of create entity from entity. And then I should have done this first. I should have made sure that all these were clean. The all of these, player, etc., those are all going to be struct access. So I'm just going to get rid of those from the context. And when I do another decompile, now that I've added some additional information, those will get regenerated. I should go through and actually look at the, I just deleted it, but we get these warnings from the compiler. I should look at the output of our builds. There are going to be warnings based on some of the code. It does appear because we have situations like this where there was an uninitialized variable that we probably wouldn't be able to get away with enabling warnings as errors, for example. But it would be nice to have a build that does build cleanly. Let's see what is still broken. So here we have a loading two different offsets. I'm going to say a +1 here. I don't know if this is the case. I don't know what the type of foreground is. We can look it up quickly. If it's 32-bit, then that's not going to work. So this is a tile map struct. Oh, it is 16-bit. So yeah, this is just getting the +1 here. So that's fine. And then this one, as I was mentioning before, these are part of the same thing. It's also just a +1. And that may be a better option than making this a 0.16. But I can change that later. And then the same thing down here, and I think that'll get us compiling. Oh, one more. Two more. Unknown 30. So we're loading a partial value from self, which is an entity at unknown 30. Likely there's something at unknown 2e. So let's look at what is there. Entities defined in game.h. I had a PR a long time ago to move this into entity.h. And I still should submit that. So this is just params. But it's being loaded as a 8-bit value. Okay. I don't think there's anything special going on there except for maybe a mask. And then unknown 140. So 140 is going to be beyond the bounds of this entity. It's going to be one entity later. And I'm going to screw up by miscalculating what this offset is. But I'll try. And then come back later with the correct thing once it's compiling and I can see what values are being generated. So the way I believe that this should be solved is taking 140 in hex, subtracting 8c, which is the size of entity, which gives me the value b4. B4 is actually a bad value to get because it's in the entity extension space. So it is fine. I'm going to use the illegal entity extension just for now. And so I need to subtract 7c from that. And then divide the whole thing by 4. And that gives me 14. We're going to say U32. That gets us compiling. It'll be close enough for now. We do have a extension for an entity that's nearby. We don't know what that entity is yet, and so we don't know what the extension should be yet either. So we have a 77% match, which isn't too bad, and so I'm going to go through and do some cleanup, and then we can start trying to get a closer match. Temp v1, this typically happens where variables pulled out when really it could just go directly into the switch. That's an issue with M2C. I don't know if it's worth looking into fixing that, but it could be done. So this var v0, I'm not going to change it now while I'm going through this cleanup. This would be pad sim, so what buttons are currently being pressed. So basically we're saying in this initial step, act like these buttons are being pressed, and let's see what those buttons are. So we have 2000, which is right. So this is what appears to be, we're saying, pretend like the controller is being pressed right. Or if you're greater than this position, so we went through and maybe, had too much acceleration in wolf form. We got too far. Press the player back right. Or sorry, left. I also am directionally dyslexic as well. People always say L. Which one's the L? One of them's the L. I don't know which one. I do if I think about it, but not offhand. This also may not be, a variable may not be needed here. This 058, sorry, what I was saying here, a variable may not be needed in these locations. I should fix this player, position X. This 0458 is going to be an E init, which is the array of values needed to initialize, and so we can get rid of the reference there since the value of an array is the address of its first element, which is just like a pointer. It chose my Doppelgänger background light. I don't think that is correct, so we'll have to fix that too. That was from yesterday, if you were watching and paying attention. Here we have a self plus BC. That is saying we have a pointer, we're going to add the offset, but the offset is actually 1. M2C, when it's decompiling, multiplies. It doesn't multiply. It just takes the offset value. I think it has enough context to know that this is a pointer. And so what does that mean? But it doesn't do it. And here we have the same thing. Both of these can be a plus plus. Looks like there's a loop here. I'll come back to that in a little bit and fix up that loop. And we have the same thing here. We're going through a bunch of entities. This is likely the block wall. So we have 4 things that are happening. And so my guess is that we're going to keep seeing those 4 things, and it's the block falling. That's my guess. And so if you haven't watched before, we have these, Splat allows you to define symbols. And so these are nested structs. And so we've defined symbols basically for the path to the last field of that struct, just to make it easy and obvious when decompiling, because we can't put these paths as symbols because they're not symbols; they're dereferencing fields. Our default is returning. This is just going to be a break though, because we don't do anything after the state machine. Any time that there's a return here, I'm going to change it to a break. That seems to be the way that most of these are programmed. And this step is going to become a +1, or sorry, increment. So here we're clearing the pad. Alucard has walked far enough in. On a lot of the states, it looks like that's happening. There is a bunch of caution. Clearing that. This may or may not be, the param may be used to identify the block that we're currently looking at, but we'll see what we can see. A fun thing to try may be to invert the order of the blocks and have them come up from the bottom instead of the top. Maybe if I get far enough, we can try doing that. I'm not going to deal with the go-tos quite yet. I'll do that after doing all these other things. Just changing these struct access. We've gone from 77 to 82%. So not really much thinking. I was looking through YouTube comments before the stream, and somebody said, thanks for showing all the detail. I love to do decompilation. I love Soten, but I don't know if I could do all this. Doing something like, there's so much set up on this project to make it easy for people to come in and work. Don't let not having done it before be something that hinders you. All right, so we have 81%. There's some velocity things here. I'll deal with that in a little bit. The first thing I want to do is get rid of the go-tos. So the first one, easiest one, is these block 34s. block 34 is coming in, and I could just replace the go-tos with something else, but I'm actually not. I'm going to go up to block 35 first. Block 35 increments, and then breaks. So we can just put the increment there, and that's all that's necessary. And we can get rid of that label and go to. And then, so block 34, what does block 34 do? Increments and breaks. So we can get rid of that one as well. Easy. All right. So the next one that I'm going to look at is some of these, what seem to be superfluous variables. We have this if, so if the params are this particular thing, we're going to set the velocity to one or the other. Basically, this is, we're setting the velocity positive or negative. And these are Soton fixed point values, which are 32-bit values. The first 16 bits, which is what we have here, are the fractional part. So this is the same as saying 1/2 or 0.5 in Soton. And I'm going to change this to the positive case, bring this down, and then get rid of the variable. Because this is how these are often written. And we'll see if that is a good match. Let's scroll down here to the bottom. It may be, yeah, that's exactly what that is, and it matches. Here we have this. I was looking at this and wanting to do something about it, but I brought this one up first, so I did that one first. So we're looking at the position of this item, the scroll position, and comparing it to this 241. When there's odd values like this that are off by ones, usually we can just change it. We still have a, okay, so this wants to be unsigned really badly. So I'll change this to an unsigned, and that matches as well. I don't know if I like forcing the unsigned there, but it works. And I'm going to go back up to the top and work from there. This is similar. So instead of greater than equals, we'll say less than 80. And then we'll set pad sim to 2000. Otherwise, we'll set pad sim to 8000. And again, that was, we're making the player go left or right depending on where they are when this state of the entity is being visited. Some register issues here. I'm not going to worry about those yet. There's some masking stuff down below. We'll have to deal with that in a little bit. So this var S1, I'm going to rename that to next. It looks like it's not being used till this loop. So I'm going to go and I'll make two variables up here, one next and one I. And I'm going to change this to be a for loop. So I is going to equal 0. Next is going to equal self plus 1. And we're going to do this while I is less than 4. After each one, increment I and increment next. And what it looks like has happened, I think we can just set params to the constant 1 here. And to fix these variables, get rid of this one here. Get rid of these as well. Screwed up something along the way. Let's see if we can tell what I screwed up. Got a comma in there somehow. There we go. So this seems fine. I'm going to what should I do here? There's something else going on here that I'm missing to deal with this move. This uninitialized save looks possibly right. One issue with uninitialized things like this is that the PSP compiler, which was MetroWorks, is a little more strict. And so a lot of times they fixed uninitialized variable errors like that. And so it's not clear if the PSP will help us like it usually does. So something similar here. We're setting I to 0. Another 4. I'm not sure what the next 4 are because there's only 4 blocks in this scene. But it looks like we're just assigning this is possibly I. I put 1 instead of either. That looks like it is working out as well. So this one is not, however. This might be next plus plus and then I plus plus. Or it could be next plus plus happening in the loop as well. That matches down below, so it's possible that it will match up here as well, but that doesn't match up here either. Let me pull this out as well. I usually don't like putting multiple statements in for loops. Yeah, that looks better. A little closer. But you have to do what the people say. I think that this is going to be, so this is optimized out into a shared statement, but I actually think it was written twice. And that works better. We can get rid of the variable. So we have a handful of entities. One is the driving entity. So that's if this function is being called and we're 0, we're kind of going to be controlling everything else, creating the other entities. If it's not 0 and we're one of these last 4, we're going to set our initial position based on one of these. We're going to set our initial position here. If we're one of the last 4, otherwise we're going to set the initial position like that for the top 4. Again, if we're the initial entity, we're going to set the pad sim and all that other stuff. Get the player to walk over. Animating the entity. This time our velocity is 4 because all the bottom 16 bits is all zeros. Um, 82, there is a mask that we don't need. So we're going to change that to just a knot. And let me see what this is. So animate entity. If we don't know that it exists, then it's treated as a int return value. So we need to make sure that when this runs, the function doesn't know about animate entity. Okay, now I have some funny business down here. So instead of having a separate value, I'm going to assume that this is just being referenced a field name each time. Matching goes down when I do that, so maybe not. So I'll replace this with a variable for now. We'll call temp0 s0 params. So here we are. What are we doing? We're calculating an offset. This grouping doesn't seem necessary. We might need to get the ordering of this correct. My guess is that the tile map scroll is going to come first in this list, and then probably the offset 60, which is I think 96 in decimal. And then we have temp S1 times 16. So that looks mostly okay. So this is our, I think we're calculating maybe the final position of the block. And the subtraction is where basically what block are we? So we're going to have an index from 3 to 0. We have an extra mask here, which is not ideal. Let's change that to, there was a mask earlier which may be necessary. Let's change that. Let's change that to assign 32. And when we're pulling params, we do want to load it as an unsigned 8, because then we're stripping off this one flag above. But that allows us then to get rid of the masking here. It's possible that this is happening in line and not being assigned to a separate variable. That looks better. I'm going to switch the orientation of this. So it's comparing this to greater or equals. And it still is loading that earlier than I want. All right, so I'll come back to that in a little bit. What seems like happening is these are being loaded in an order that I don't necessarily want, but I can't do anything about that quite yet. This GAPI. So temp A0 here is our tile map index. These may be being calculated inline as well. Not sure. And then this is the index for which tile to use. So there are 8 tiles here, even though there were only 4 blocks that fall down. I'm going to load that again. So I'm not sure what the other 4 are for. Let's see if we can tell. Yeah, I mean, we only see 4 blocks. Oh, is it possible that there's 4 on the other side? I didn't think about that. Let's let this go. Yeah, there are 4 on the other side. Okay. So this controls both sides of the blocks. Interesting. About as interesting as watching paint dry, maybe? I don't know. I'm going to change these instead of a 0.16. Now I think is as good a time as any to just change this to a unsigned 16 array. So that's going to break everything. So here, instead of x and y, I'm just going to do +1. And so this will compile, and when we look at what symbols are being used, the symbols won't match exactly, but it's computing this +2 here. So the compiler knows that it just wants the next entry over, and that constant offset is always going to be there, and so it's going to bake in the address. And the same thing here is happening as well. So I think there's some ordering things here that are probably going to be have a few issues. There's an extra shift happening. Oh, that. So instead of the shift happening by 2, the shift is happening by 1 2 times. So this is just out of order, the tile index. It's possible as other things get calculated that this will work out, but it is not at the moment. Oh, these probably need to be by 2 as well. I'll deal with this in as we get closer. I want these instructions to be in the correct order before I worry too much about them. The same thing is going to be necessary here. We need to, because our stride is 2, we could change, that is possibly interesting. We could change this to an array of arrays of size 2. And that would give us the stride for free. There's still this issue here where our offset is off by, or the instructions are happening 1 out of order. I'm not sure what to do about that yet, but I do like the nested array, and those instructions look fine. So we have our 2 indexes here. This will be, I'll just say it's the block index. And this one as well. I'm going to take this time to go through. So the tile map index, now we have this. So the block index does need to be calculated first, at least there. And so let's make that consistent between both of them. No. Or not. This var A2 is being used to calculate the tile map index. I'm going to not have a separate temp for params. Block 34, this label. I meant to get rid of that earlier. I can get rid of that now. Let's do that up here as well. Oh yeah, I did try to get rid of that variable earlier. Not really making any progress on getting closer to a match. So this is down here is where the sound effect plays. So once we've hit, we're going to play a sound. If this is one of the one set of blocks versus the other set of blocks. I'm going to change this to being like the others where this is an else, and instead of using a separate variable, these are just set to the constant. And we'll need the PSP version to tell us if that is the correct option. The match is going way down, so that tells me that it may not be the right thing. Let's put those back, at least in the right order, and see if that is a little better. No, still not good. Okay. So that didn't work out the way I was hoping. And so I'm guessing the same thing is going to happen down here as well. So we can, basically this is the X offset. In the, call it the left-right offset, because we're saying which tile map should we use. And I think that may be a reasonable way to identify that. All right, let's see what variables we can get rid of. We still have this one, so this is the block Y position. This is gone. These are all gone. So what's nice is we have a sound effect, and sound effects have relatively unique values. So we should be able to get rid of, or find the PSP version reasonably earlier. Or, sorry, easier, not earlier. Let's see. Oh, yeah, it's looking at variables. 0. I was thinking about making this my ringtone. If anybody knows what this music is from, kudos. That's about all I can give you, but I would be impressed. It sounds a lot like, or it reminds me of, at least, the Wii what do you call it? Tile screen background music. It is not that. Not Nintendo related at all. Oh, so I got rid of temp v0 and I should not have. All right, so let's go find the PSP version. I'm going to grab that sound effect. And see if we can find it. Oh, I might have to pull this again because I had to delete. Oh, maybe not. I had to get rid of some other stuff. So we only have one function. So yeah, sound effects for the win. We don't have any primitive manipulation here at all, so I can use the same context even though it's not the PSP context. I will, don't want to do a Dreamcast decomp. So for Dreamcast, the Lost version has all of the Saturn content plus all of the Harmony of Despair content. There was another comment somebody made that they were looking forward to the 16:9 version. And I think a Harmony of Despair type UI would be pretty sweet. If you are not familiar with Harmony of Despair, is Xbox 360, PS3 era kind of mashup of a bunch of the Metroidvanias where you could zoom out and see basically the whole map. And oops, show in context. So, like I said, we do get a very loud error. So, yeah, you could zoom out or in. You could play as different characters from a bunch of games. And it was full 16:9. Pretty interesting concept. One of the coolest things about the game is that bosses were able to... so you could see where the boss was of the stage right away. Bosses were able to send attacks across the entire map. So one of the first bosses does just that. They shoot a giant beam through all the rooms, and so you could be anywhere on the map and potentially be hit by the boss, and you have to be aware of that the whole time. The advantage to Soten really would just be being able to kind of strategize where you want to go. Part of it is the exploration, though, and so maybe that wouldn't add much to be able to zoom out and see the whole map. Or maybe you could zoom out as far as you've already traveled. That would be somewhat interesting. So here we have a one being loaded instead of the 4. Which is interesting. We're also going out to an external global that doesn't appear to be happening on the PlayStation 1 version. I'm going to keep going down and see if there's anything. So there's an ad as well that's missing. The value of S1 and S4. S1 is, looks like it's the the I variable, but it is starting at 1. Oh, and what I think is happening is that wasn't happening before. Or maybe it is, and this is just kind of clarifying it. The first block is the driving block, which is interesting. So one of the blocks basically controls all of the other blocks. Kind of a fun little detail. Yeah, we have some external variable that doesn't exist on the PlayStation side. And it looks like whatever that is. So we're using 1B as the entity. It's coming from a global on the PlayStation, and so there'll have to be a if-def for that. So here we have, these are inverted. So this was the way that it was decompiled originally, and I switched it. We're doing an unsigned addition. What I'm trying to do is force this to be an unsigned addition. For whatever reason, this addition is being generated as unsigned. And because it's not an addition with a constant at all. So let's see where our we need this 100 constant. And where is that being set? 100 hex. I don't see. Let's look at what M2C would tell us. Oh, this is a variable. So we have our basically our mask, and we're using one mask or the other mask depending on where the player is. We have a bunch of variables up here. Okay, so let's add those. And what probably happens is this is not set in one of the cases on the PlayStation version, which is why we get the uninitialized value. Or maybe it is. It just gets optimized away in a way that makes M2C think that it's not initialized. So let's do that. So we have our this sorry, all kinds of things. So basically we're saying, are you coming through the left door or are you coming from the right door? Which is kind of a cool thing. So I think in logic, there would normally be no way. Oh, could you come up? Maybe you could do that. You might be able to come up through the chapel and get to outer wall that way. And so then you'd be coming down and you could come in through the right. I didn't think about that path. But that's maybe a valid path. All right, so we need to determine which of these is left block flags versus right block flags. I don't know if I have these correct, but we'll see. And that's why the PSP version is nice. It tells you all these nice things. And so when we're setting this up, then we're using the left block flag. Let's see what I screwed up here. All right. And so then this would be left block flag +1, or +I, sorry. And then this one would be right block flag +I. And let's look at that and see if M2C is happy with us. Again, this is coming from a global. There's not anything we can do about that at the moment. There is something we could do, but I'm not going to do anything about it at the moment. The rest of this looks good, though. Let's do something about that at the moment. So I'm going to take this. We're loading a word here. So that means it's a signed 32 value. And I like to... version PSP is already in there. Great. I like to... do that, and then one day we'll have to come through and decide, I guess, which side is kind of the default side if you're doing ports. There's a mask here, so I'm going to change this. Or actually, I'm just going to get rid of the declaration. That seems to happen a lot. So we don't have the declaration, which means all parameters are treated as ints. Continuing down, 81, there's a masking issue. And that gets rid of that. Another one on 87. Oops. You didn't see that, but I did. I accidentally was switching spaces. So there's some missing loads. We have to go find V0. No, sorry. We're grabbing a variable. And it looks like that's self. And we're branching if it's not equal to 0. That seems like it's unique. So this is offset 30. This may be a bug fix. Yeah, I think this is. So instead of, so when, only for the driving block are we going to reset these values. And I'm guessing the same thing happens down here as well. It seems like that's probably PSP exclusive behavior. So I will have to if-def those. And that now we're going to get into some very different stuff down here. So I'm going to save that and go back over to the PlayStation 1 version and see how this looks in comparison. Ooh, very bad, very bad. So let me get rid of these since I'm pretty sure that these do not exist. So still not great. Let me put the if-defs around those. Save that. So something broke along the way. I'm guessing up here where these are being set. This logic wasn't like this originally, and there's something else that's happening where GCC knows that this is a 0. I'm not sure why it ends up being a plus equals. Oh, this is done out of order. So this is just going to be I. So we have to do this here as well. I'm going to move this up. Yeah, so we have some reasonable amount of divergence here. So this self-params is being set to 0, but all of this is different. Oh, no, that looks right. I'm not sure. Something odd is going on there. So we do have to get rid of all of those. What happened to my right? So these are all gone in this version. All right, so I think we're back pretty much to what it was earlier. So let's save that and go back over. So what have we been doing for the last hour and a half or so? We're decompiling the blocks that get you into Doppelgänger's room. These on the left and the right there. And what have we learned about them? We learned that there's 8 of them. Surprise, surprise. 4 on each side. That the function supports walking into the room from the left or the right, and it will push you into the room. That the PSP version is updated from the PlayStation version for reasons that we don't know quite yet. If you want to know more about decompiling Castlevania Symphony of the Night, you can go to certain.z.dev. I'll keep working on these functions tomorrow as well, and maybe we can get through all of these doors and then move on to Doppelgänger himself. You can find a link to GitHub, and you can find a link to Discord at certain.z.dev, and GitHub has all the code that's been decompiled, and it's quite a bit of code. Don't want to look at the pulls, but several hundred files, probably tens of thousands of lines of code for decompiling Symphony of the Night. And we've been working on BO4, which is not actually 100%. But I will try to fix that and make it so that we know how much there actually is there. That's all I have for you. If you want to stop by tomorrow, I'll be streaming, same time, same channel. But that's all I have. Adios.